What's going on, lifers? Welcome to another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I am your host, Jake Thomas, and today's guest you may have heard of occasionally when you hear the words carnivore diet. His name sometimes comes up. It's not super familiar with the diet, but occasionally you might hear about it. You've seen him on the Joe Rogan Experience, numerous other podcasts, including London Real. He is the author of actually the Carnivore Diet, a good friend, and welcome to the show, Dr. Shawn Baker.
Hey, Jake, thanks for the introduction. Appreciate that. Glad to be here finally. As we were kind of joking behind it, we kind of had a few miscues and totally 100% my fault. So I'll take full blame for that. But anyway, thanks, Jake, for having me.
It's good to see you. We're just talking off camera about some goals coming up with you, starting to get closer and closer to 50. Being your 60, excuse me, being 60, your height, your size. Looking to run. We were talking about the world record for 400-meter running at the 60-year-old mark being around 53 seconds. You wanting to run sub 60. I mean, for the guy that's already got world record rowing numbers, is that something you'd be chasing after too, you think?
Yeah, the rowing numbers, I'm fairly confident I can do that without even, I know the numbers. I know the guy who has, in fact, the guy who owns a 60-plus world record for the events I'll be competing, his name's Colin Cook. He's a carnivore as well, by the way. Interestingly, he's about 6'9", so another big guy, and rowing favors bigger athletes for sure. For instance, right now, the 500-meter top time in the world this year is 1:15. I'm number 2 of all ages, which is kind of cool being able to do that at my age. Yeah. But he's 300 pounds, so it's a big man sport for sure. So, but obviously, as you know, running distance or medium distance for fast is definitely not that. I mean, there's not a lot of 250-pound people running very fast, and so I'd like to be able to be at least one of them that's reasonably up there. But I mean, I will have to lose a little bit of weight. There's no doubt. I'm walking around at about 260, 265 right now. And so I think realistically to hit the numbers I'd like to hit, I probably have to drop about 20. But that, I'm giving myself 2 years to do that. So I don't think that'll be too hard to do. And then of course, as you know, as someone who has competed in multiple, marathons, I think, I can't, correct me if I'm wrong, it might've been triathlons. Yep. There's training that's involved for sure.
A little bit. Yeah, 6'9", 300 pounds on the rower. I mean, that's got to be just like yours. I know you have it weighted down, right? Like with weights and whatnot on that.
Yeah, thing. When you start going for sprinting, and this is a funny thing with people, because people are always referring to me. They say, "Oh, your technique is off," and I say, "Look, it's very different. It's like a marathon runner trying to teach like a guy like Usain Bolt how to run properly they're totally different events, and so." With that, it's just about pulling as hard as you can, as fast as you can. And so the technique is quite a bit different. And because of that, because you're just leaning into it as hard as you can and yanking with everything you got, the rower tends to jump all over the place. And if I wouldn't hold it down, I mean, I've done it without being held down. It'll move 12 feet across the room while you're kind of thing. So you gotta hold it down. You gotta wait. So I weigh mine down with about 350 pounds of weights stuffed on either side of it. So it doesn't go anywhere.
I believe it. You've been traveling, you travel a lot. And I know recently you're just in Slovakia. It's a pretty good far distance from the U.S., other side of the planet kind of thing. What was the state? What did you observe out there as far as in what people looked like? What were they? I don't know. What was their temperament? What anything you notice in comparison to back home?
Well, anytime I go overseas, there's a decrease in the amount of people that are obese. I mean, that's just, fairly clear. And there's a lot of reasons that go into that. But I mean, Slovakia, like most European places, I mean, I was in Bratislava, the capital of Slovakia. There's, people are walking more. I mean, there's probably less garbagey food. I mean, the funniest thing to me, which I thought was hilarious, I was speaking at a conference and there were hundreds and hundreds of people that turned out. So I was quite surprised to hear that, there's me talking about carnivore. Basically, everybody was talking about basically that. And there was 3 of us speaking. John Jaquish, a guy named Daniel Mayar, who put the event on or helped promote the event. Hundreds and hundreds of people doing carnivore over there, which is real. I mean, in that meeting, and it was kind of neat to see that the same things I'm seeing here are people getting healthy. But the funniest thing to me is they assigned me a full-time security detail. And so I literally, every time I was there, I had a guy with a black suit standing next to me. It's kind of protect, I guess, allegedly protect. And these were all they were surprised by one of the professional MMA fighters. It's kind of in with that group. So he had a lot of his like guys that part-time do security detail. They're all like MMA fighters and, fairly lethal guys. And, but it was, everybody came up to me, was just a nice person and wanted to take pictures or chat. And so halftime, the guy just took the phone to take a picture. So it was kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, it's, I think the most profound thing you see when you travel outside the U.S. in most places is that we have a very different overall metabolic health than what we see here, unfortunately. And it's, well, as you know, it's a huge problem. And hopefully we're going to get to the root of that and address that eventually.
Yeah, it's really like kind of what the mission of your company Rivero kind of does, right? It's kind of putting the power into the people's hands and putting the onus on the individuals to kind of not so much source healing from a practitioner, but more so empower people to kind of heal themselves and then just kind of refer kind of to a community.
Yeah, I mean, one of the frustrations I had as a practicing orthopedic surgeon, when I sort of made that discovery that, wait a minute, we should be doing more than just providing pills and doing procedures on paperless. Let's start really focusing on lifestyle. Was that not only was it not encouraged by the hospital system I was in, it was certainly not encouraged, but it was actually actively discouraged that I would do that. Because I specifically went to the administration and said, hey, I'd like some time, maybe a half day a week to talk lifestyle and all that stuff. And they literally said, no, no, you're not going to do that. That, of course, pissed me off. And so it led to a lot of other stuff downstream. But one of the frustrations I had was when I was, seeing my patients at the, every 15-minute reality, it was like every 5 to 6 minutes I was seeing a patient because it was so busy. I had no resources dedicated to helping these people with lifestyle. I mean, at best, I might be able to refer occasionally a person to a nutritionist or a dietitian if their insurance company would pay for it. Most of the time it wouldn't. And even then you would get the standard food pyramid advice in many cases. And, what it turns out is, if you're going to make, for many people, some people just say, hey, go read this book and they're good. And they solve it. But many people require a lot more support than that. Many people require ongoing contact, ongoing, troubleshooting, ongoing motivation, encouragement, sometimes community. And that's what we just don't have in the sort of standard medical world. And that's what we built with Rivero. And so I'm very, very excited about that we've kind of launched that a few months ago, and we're rapidly growing and getting more and more patients. And of course, we're getting people off medications and seeing their diseases go into remission and actually treating the root cause. But it's a different paradigm. And it's a paradigm that, it's not rewarded in the traditional medical system. It's like, yeah, you could potentially take the time out to counsel people on this and provide, but you're literally going to go broke doing that. So we had to, figure out a way to digitally make sense because you can scale it at you don't need brick and mortar multi-million-dollar facilities to do this. And so we're figuring it out how to bring that to the masses, and it's been something I'm extremely excited about and extremely proud to be part of.
Paradigm, I think, is the right word that you used, because clearly whatever has been the standard has maybe been substandard or just satisfactory as far as in what the outcome has been for people, patients. And to what you're doing now, talking about something that's more holistic, more personable, more intimate, not as conventional, to use the word, compared to what's out there now. Would you see that as being a catalyst to what might come later, like from other places? Would you see that eventually being something on a much larger, grand, like taking oversized scale?
I do. I see it as an emerging. I mean, there are other companies that are starting to explore this sort of path, and I think, some of them are specialized, like there's folks in the metabolic, mental metabolic space, Chris Palmer and the Bazuki Foundation, those guys that are sort of interested in this. And we've seen tremendous, I've seen tremendous improvements across the board in mental health disease, whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, just like they have. And so, yeah, I think there's more and more people that are taking that up. Whether it becomes mass adopted or not, I don't know yet. I mean, you'll see. I mean, maybe some of this "Make America Healthy Again" movement might help to allow that, to facilitate that. I mean, ultimately, in my view, it's gonna depend upon the people themselves wanting it and actually supporting that, because like I said, we can't be successful without patients that are willing to support us and partially financially. We can't do it for free, so we have to charge some kind of fee so that we can pay our doctors and pay our coaches and pay our engineers and that type of stuff. So it comes at a cost, and the question is, are people willing to do that to gain actual health, or are they just like the convenience of just give me a pill, just give me a shot, just give me a Zepic shot, and I'll be good and I can go on with my life? And I think a certain percentage of people want that, would prefer that. There's a lot of people that just like the convenience. I mean, they're happy to just keep eating the stuff they're quite honestly addicted to, the junk food garbage. And hey, if I can take a shot and allow me to keep doing it, I'll keep doing that. And so we'll see what wins out in the end. I suspect that, for the next several years, this will still be sort of a minority type of thing. But again, if the results are so obviously different, we've got a scientific team that we're publishing our data, so we can start saying, hey, look, this is what you can get, this is what you can expect, and then hopefully we can get that information out to enough people so they can make a choice. And so it should just be a choice. I mean, I'm the last guy to say we should limit people's choices, but at the same time, it should be known, there should be some level of saying, hey, there are multiple ways to skin a cat, so to speak, in this, and this is one way that some people might be attracted to. And I think a lot of people, actually, if you talk to them, honestly, most people would prefer not to be on the drugs and not maybe perhaps be kind of addicted to this sort of ultra processed crap that we sort of mistakenly call food. I mean, it's essentially recreational drugs. I mean, I think it's a better description of a lot of the stuff that's on the shelves that like I said, we pretend that it's food somehow.
Yeah, I agree. When I talk to people about biomarkers and panels and testing, laboratory testing, and they get results back that they're not necessarily happy with, I equate testing as a test. You can prepare for that test / study for that test and get the grade you deserve based on the amount of preparation you put into it, or you can show up, take the test ad valorem, and you get the grade you deserve based on how you are. I think a lot of people would maybe have more onus on themselves if they felt like they understood that more, as opposed to showing up, my cholesterol is like this, all my CRP looks, most people don't know about CRP, but my A1C is all out of whack. Everything doesn't look favorable to me. I've been told I need to do X, Y, Z, stop doing this, take this, as opposed to being informed and saying, hey, like, this is a test. You're showing up to take a test and you're being evaluated based on how prepared you are for the test. If you don't show up prepared and you get results that are not, what you want to see, then you should have been prepared. Do you think a lot of people show up like that, just at face value, and then get these results back, and then that system kind of just perpetuates them to stay where they are?
Yeah, I mean, in some regard. I mean, I think that, and again, sometimes it's the advice you get from the physicians, and a lot of times we kind of chase biomarkers with drugs or supplements or something like that. And I mean, ultimately, because I can literally draw 100 labs on myself, on you, on anybody, and of those 100 labs, some of them are going to be not where you think they should be. I mean, maybe they're slightly high or slightly low or out of range or in range, or, and those people say, well, this is actually, there's an optimal range rather than a standard reference range. And so I think sometimes some people get overly focused on some of these things, and not that you should just totally discount them, but I think at the same time, if we measure different things, let's just say we change the way we incentivize physicians. Instead of saying let's manage your blood, let's say we manage your cholesterol and your glucose and your CRP or something like that. There's things you can do. You can hack those things in many ways, in a way that's not actually healthy. I mean, you can certainly do that. But if instead of that we said, hey, look, we're going to measure, I don't know how fast you can run 100 meters. I mean, I don't really see that being actually happening. But if you think about what it would take for me to run 100 meters at a certain pace, let's say 15, let's just put 15 seconds out there arbitrarily. I like that number because the world record for an 85-year-old is 15 seconds. So it's like, most people, if an 85-year-old dude can run a 15-second 100, then I should be able to too. But what's stopping me from doing that? I mean, I can, for the record, I can run that. But I mean, but what potentially would stop me? One, I'm out of shape. I'm overweight. My knees hurt. I don't have the cardiovascular fitness. I don't have the flexibility. All of those things are indicative of overall health. So we could now. I mean, to realistically think you go to the doctor and they tell you strap on your tennis shoes and go as a routine test is not likely to happen. But there's other things we can look at that are informative, that represent sort of chronic health. Like I said, I did a little, I don't know what you want to call it, an experiment. I did a little fun little exercise where I was looking at my total cholesterol because I had a cholesterol testing kit I could do at home. That's considered quite accurate actually. And I checked it on a month. It was like a Sunday afternoon, and it was 154 was my total cholesterol, which is
really,
most people consider that's kind of good. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So what I did was I fasted for 18 hours and I worked out. So I basically used a lot of energy up. Basically, that's eventually what happens. And then so I checked it the following day. It went from 154 to 345. So almost a 200-point increase. It was like 189-point increase in under 24 hours. So that shows there's a lot of dynamic variability in these labs. And so if I had to go into the doctor on the Sunday, he'd have said, "Oh, good, give me a pat on the back." But if I went on the Monday, he would have said, "Oh my God, we got to get you on drugs and change your diet and maybe go send you to a cardiologist." But what doesn't change is if I look down and I go, "Okay, I can grab 3 inches of belly fat," right? That ain't changing in 18 hours. I don't care what you do. You're not, unless you maybe surgically removed it. But I mean, generally, that's going to be representative and reflective of what's going on more chronically. And so I tend to look at like biomarkers and measurements that reflect chronic change. And some of that, has to do with, A1C is not a bad marker. I think that blood pressures, equally can be reasonable. There's people that in the doctor office, they just get stage fright. They just kind of get this white coat syndrome where their blood pressure goes up. And so there's things that are worth measuring. Some things, are worth, like if you roll into the doctor's office and your hemoglobin A1C is 12, I mean, that's a problem. You're diabetic. I mean, you shouldn't know that thing. But I mean, there's people that get obsessed about, one day my fasting glucose was 89, the next time it was 93. Right. And they're like, "Oh, what am I doing wrong?" Right. Like, I don't know, maybe nothing. Right. I mean, it doesn't necessarily do that. So I think we have to be careful about how we assess health in many ways. And put things in clinical context. I can tell you that, fortunately, I don't get it as much lately. I did for a number of years where, maybe because I've said this so many times that people are just sick of listening to me say this, but I would get people just randomly sending me their labs. I don't know who they are. I don't know anything about them. I don't know how old they are, what their health condition is. "Hey, doc, check out my lipid labs. What do you think?" I'm like, "I got nothing for you, man. I don't know. It could mean anything. I'm not, that number's out of range, but I don't know what that means." I mean, it's hard to say. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that stuff.
It's a good answer, and one that, again, I agree. Chase, how do you feel? Before what the numbers say or what's going. How do you feel? How do you look? What's the condition? What's physical condition, emotional condition, living condition? Like what's your personal state? You mentioned the health part of America and making America healthy again. The other day I ran triathlon locally, and I had a race kit made with the Make America Healthy on it. And a lady after the race, she was like, "Wow, I really love your jersey. Are you a fan of Robert F. Kennedy?" And I was like, "I don't know what you mean." And I said that jokingly. Obviously, I understand the reference, and certainly I'm being suggestive with the shirt to say that. But don't you find that, I don't know, I don't want to call it ironic, but like almost paradoxical that the fact that Make America Healthy Again statement has political affiliation, as opposed to, isn't that something we can't all get around? And I feel like it's I don't know why that's a polarizing thing, but it's seemingly to be that way right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that more people are talking about it. And I've talked to Nicole Shanahan, his room. I interviewed with her. I was actually asked to go speak at an event in Mar-a-Lago with Trump and RFK to present to those guys as part of this roundtable team, but it got canceled because of the recent hurricane. But, at the same time, I agree, like you, this should not be a politicized movement or belief system. And I think if you talk to the average person, regardless of their political affiliation, most people would agree that chronic disease is a real issue in this country, and we should improve our food supply. I don't think that's inherently political. Unfortunately, it's like, you see these things where, if you lift weights and work out, you're a right-wing extremist. I mean, it's like, what the hell is going on with this stuff? It's just insane that people would imply that. And so, Yeah, I mean, I hope that irrespective of what happens during this election, I know a lot of people feel very strongly one way or the other, that sort of message can get out there. And I mean, the people that are pushing it now are going to continue to, I certainly, I mean, as you know, I've been talking about this stuff for years and years and years, but going on a decade now. And so I think that, I mean, like I said, at the very least, if only like 5% of the people actually cared about this, now you politicize it, now automatically 50% of the people cares about that issue. Like before, it's like you see all these things about, these issues come up that no one even knows about, ever heard of, but their political party starts making hay about it, and all of a sudden they suddenly care about that
Yeah.
issue. So if 50% of the people, if 50% of the population wants to make America healthy again versus the 5% that did before, that's a good thing in my view, even though it's been politicized, but at the same time, it shouldn't be. And hopefully it would be 100% or, 99.9%, the people that stand to profit off of illness and sickness are those people that are going to be obviously skeptical and oppose it and try to squash it and denigrate it and smear the people that are proponents of that. So we'll see what happens. But I'm at least positive is getting on the national radar and more people are talking about it, even though it has been politicized, and some of them are just talking about because they like the political talking points, and whether they sincerely believe in it or not, we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting underground swell that's continued to flow and build. Like to see the word seed oil on major news networks, on network news. Like not in a Reddit backroom, not in the YouTube, subtext, or like to see that word or to hear politicians talking, saying those words out loud. Never heard that in my life. I've never heard that in my lifetime on the global stage being said out loud and in a way that it's denigrating or trying to create change based around that. So like to see that, that's progress. I mean, like you said, whether it's 50% or 5% plus or minus, like that's a difference. And clearly the statement's being heard because of what's been going on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's getting out there, so we'll see what happens. And I don't know if you saw there was a effort by some people to sort of boycott or not boycott to
Kellogg's
petition
in
Kellogg's,
Michigan.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Vanny Hari, the food
yeah,
babe, and Jason Karp was there, and Callie Means, and they got in there, they brought their 400,000 signatures, and they kind of got just stonewalled at the gate. I mean, it was like the security guard said, "Yeah, I'll take it in, whatever. No one's going to talk to us." And honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think when you make requests to these companies, they're gonna, they're gonna, oh, we'll take it under consideration. Maybe maybe they'll shift an ingredient around or two, maybe, but it's not really
yeah,
meaningful in many ways. And so I think it's ultimately it's got to be up to us as consumers to say, look, we're just sick of, we're not going to support you guys anymore until you change. I mean, and that's what ultimately makes things move is the market share and the money, and that's all they care about, honestly. I mean, that's what their shareholders care about. That's, I mean, there's people that like, if you can make it healthy and still make money, we're fine. But I mean, again, but I mean, again, do you think we can make Lucky Charms healthy without food dyes? I don't think that's a real issue, quite honestly. I think it's garbage regardless. I mean, it's like lipstick on a pig, one way or the other. So, we'll see. But I mean, I think, just like, Bud Light got boycotted for the sort of the transgender crap that they were sort of engaging in, and not to delve into that topic. But I mean, it shows that the market does have influence
sure,
and impact.
sure,
And if we all just say, look, we're done with you guys. Sorry, your sales are going to drop 20-30%. They'll respond to that stuff at some
yeah,
point. And, like I said, I think, it's election season. We're here in the middle of October. November 5th is our election. A lot of people are talking about voting this and voting that, but you get to vote every day. I mean, you literally vote every day. Every time you make a purchase, every time you make a buying decision, you vote to either you empower somebody over the other ones. And so every time you give money to these ultra processed food companies, they get more money. They're already capitalized to the tune of trillions of dollars. If you look at the combination of big food, big pharma, um, I don't want to 100% demonize those guys, but they do a lot of things that probably they shouldn't do. And they do profit off of our sickness. And so if we continue to support them, then why wouldn't they?
yeah. And short answer, no, I don't think they can make Lucky Charms healthy, um, even if they tried. One, two, you talked about being kind of on your mission now for the better part of 10 years. You talked about it in your book. You talked about it on multiple interviews before. Take us back 10 years. Where was Dr. Shawn Baker? What was he feeling like? What was he doing? preceding?
Yeah, so 10 years ago. So if we go back to 2014, I had, 2012 was when maybe 2011, 2012 was when I sort of had my own personal sort of realization that my health was not where I wanted it to be. So I started this sort of journey to uh, fix my health through nutrition because I was already working out. I mean, I was a world champion athlete. I mean, I think I just won the Highland Games World Championships 2010. I was a strong, big, powerful guy sprinting. I mean, I was heavy. I mean, I was a big guy. I was 290 at that time. But I said, look, I'm kind of done with that. So I was slimming down. I got down to like 230. I remember. I was at that time in 2011 specifically, or 2014. I was at that time. I wasn't on a carnivore diet yet. That started in 2016. So 2014, I was sort of engaged in this sort of ketogenic diet, and I remember specifically at that time, I was we were. I was an orthopedic surgeon. I was head of the orthopedic group. I had a bunch of surgeons working under me, and within the local community, there were other groups, and we all kind of met together and said, "Hey, we need to deal with all the obesity we're having because with particularly around knee replacements. We were doing knee replacements on a lot of fat people. Fat people have. I'm sorry if anyone's offended by that, but they have higher rates of complications. They would have higher rates of blood clots. They would have higher rates of infections. They'd have higher rates of wound issues. They're just harder to operate on. I mean, they're technically more challenging to operate on an obese person for various reasons. And so, as a community, we're saying, look, we want to do something collectively to sort of lower some of those complication rates. And so we said, we're just going to, anybody that's BMI is over 35, we're going to just say, look, you got to lose weight before you have surgery. And everybody agreed to that, right? But the problem was there was no like, this is how you do it. It was just like, okay, figure it out yourself. And because at that time I was on a ketogenic diet and having success, it was the first time I got into ketosis. The first time I was like, wow, I'm not hungry all the time. It really kind of woke me up. So I started to see my patients that qualified for knee replacement, but were overweight. And I said, hey, why don't you just try this for a little while? Because we can't operate on until you lose, I don't know, 30, 40 pounds, whatever the number was. And, of course, not everybody would do it. A lot of people would just not do it. They would just whatever, and they'd cry and come to the office 6 months later crying, I can't lose weight. And eventually we had this moratorium. Like if you can, you get 6 months to fix them. If you can't, then you can write an exception. But there was a few people. I mean, probably about 20% of my patients would do it. And the one thing that really struck me as interesting is that, I would see them back typically about 2 weeks after I first sort of proposed it. So I said, hey, how's the diet going? What's going on? How do you feel? And more often than not, the patient would come back and they would say, you know what, doc, I only lost like 5 pounds, but my knee doesn't hurt anymore. And I was like, well, that's interesting. If your knee doesn't hurt, then maybe we don't need to do the surgery on you. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I ended up canceling a lot of surgeries on patients. And of course,
Practice model.
that didn't fly very well with the hospital system because they're like, wait a minute, we're losing revenue. We expect because they make a lot of money on these surgeries, right? I mean, it's not just the fee that I get paid. It's the hospital, it's the OR, it's the recovery room, it's the rehab, it's the lab, it's the radiology, it's the imaging, all the stuff that goes into that. It's a lot of money, and so they were like, they didn't like that. I mean, honestly, that's when I really dawned upon me that it's like, wait a minute, our incentives as physicians it's perversely incentivized. If I can be able to prevent people from having surgery, which I think is arguably a good thing, then that should be rewarded, not sort of not supported. In my case, actively discouraged. And so yeah, that's where I was 10 years ago. And then of course I came across these wacko people doing an all meat diet, zero carb diet, Amber O'Hearn, Charles Washington, like I don't know, Kelly Hogan, all these guys that were doing that. And I thought these people are absolutely nuts. These people are crazy. Right. And then I just kind of with morbid curiosity followed along with them and just sort of, hey, this kind of makes sense. And then I had to, then I tried it until 2016, kind of periodically I did a little bit. Then finally at the end of 2016, I jumped in for 30 days and then I just literally haven't looked back since. It's been like, wow, this is the best I've felt my whole life. And so it's now we're like 8 years into the process. And, I'm still here. I haven't died of a heart attack. I haven't had scurvy. My colon hasn't fallen out or anything like that. So anyway, it's interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine the hospital not liking, turning down surgery patients because patients healed or customers lost in any sense of the word. Um, and yeah, that's a lot of money, imaging and everything else, like you talked about. How's that changed you now as a physician? How much has that changed your relationship with patients, your kind of the direction you take with people?
Yeah, I mean it's an absolute joy now because I mean you think about before who goes to an orthopedic surgeon, someone who's
Someone
broke
that needs
something, somebody who
surgery.
feels
Yeah.
awful, right? They don't want to be there. I mean they're not like there's a hell of a lot more places I'd rather be than get talk about getting my knee replaced or my whatever my shoulder scoped or have my rotator cuff or my ACL fixed or something like that. They have to be
Yep.
there. They're like captured. They're like it's only either due to traumatic misfortune or the sequelae of chronic disease. And so you have a different sort of attitude. It's like, yeah, doc, I'll do it because I have to, and I have a choice. But now when people come to see me or see our company Rivero, they want to be there. They're like, look, I am excited to talk to you guys. I really want to change my life, and
Mm.
and the experience is much better. And the outcomes tend to be so much better. It's not that we had bad outcomes in surgery. I mean, we fixed the problem. Somebody with a bad sore knee, you put a knee replacement, yeah, their knee's going to feel better. But I mean, you haven't fixed the underlying issue, which is the arthritis, the metabolic, which is really, in my view, a metabolic disease in many ways. And so now you get people that are like, I mean, just wholesale life, completely life changed. I mean, there's people that are like, they're limited because of their disease. Maybe they have rheumatoid arthritis and they can't do this or that, and that gets better. And all of a sudden they're able to participate in life, but then their mental health gets better. I mean, it's just like a total makeover of the person. You see so many wins where people are just like you get these people that say, they get a laundry list, 20 things that got better when I did this,
Yeah.
rather than my knee doesn't hurt anymore. So it's way more rewarding. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm super excited to, like I still do these, like I don't really do direct medical care in my capacity anymore. I mean, I'm sort of the chief medical officer of the company. And so I oversee a lot of physicians that are doing that. But as far as my individual interaction, it's mostly just kind of lifestyle, I call it lifestyle counseling, basically talking about diet, nutrition, health, and that type of stuff. So I'm not, treating disease or diagnosing people, but I do see a lot of people day to day, and I talk to them, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, I look forward to that. It's my favorite part of the day. I mean, honestly, well, and then that, and I conduct these community wide meetings. These large, you know, uh, video conferences with 20, 50, 100 people in there, and it's just fun. I mean, I look forward to actually connecting with people on a day-to-day basis, and they listen to me, blah blah blah. But I mean, there's a lot of back and forth. I get a lot of stuff for people just figuring it out, and it's fun to see people just change for the better. So that's been really fun.
Oh, that is awesome. Boy, that's what it should be all about, I feel like, but unfortunately isn't always the case. You're right when you talk about being an orthopedic surgeon. Usually when people get to you as the patient, they've already gone through several other phases. Most people don't just get to walk into the orthopedic surgeon's office and say, "Hey, this is what I need, help me." It's usually, okay, let's get this done first. Let's get you checked there. Let's get some imaging done, whether it's x-rays or MRIs, or a lot of things precede usually getting to you. And by the time they get to you, like you said, they're usually frustrated. They are maybe hopeless that something traumatic happens where it's requiring you to be there. They don't want to be there, like you said. How many people now, though, aren't coming to you because they're on their last leg, but rather they're like, it's the first thing they want to do. It's the first option they're going to, and they are excited. Like you said, they feel empowered. It sounds a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, in reality, this should be the first step. Honestly, when you get diagnosed with a chronic disease, first thing you should do is like lifestyle. I mean, it shouldn't be what pill can I take. I mean, that should be that those should be the last resorts for when people have actually had a real uh, meaningful lifestyle change. I think that's where we should be focusing on it. I mean, I would say I'd be dishonest to say it was 100% of the people come to me as a first resort. I mean, some people are, a lot, like I do see a lot of patients who have been through the medical ringer. I mean, they've been to every specialist and been on every drug and nothing's worked, and they come to me as their last resort, which it doesn't. I'm fine to help them with that, but I mean, that shouldn't be the way we do it. I think what we're doing should be the frontline thing people do, because it would have helped them avoid, I don't know how many just in terms of dollars alone. I mean, we spend $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare, and most of that goes to chronic disease. And I think most of it probably could be eliminated with just what we're doing, just proper lifestyle, nutrition, cleaning people up in a way from their kind of crappy lifestyle. Um, So that's, but I mean, again, we've made it too convenient. I mean, here's like an example. Like you see all these people, cruising around in their mobility scooters at the grocery store. Some of them legitimately probably don't have a choice. Like somebody's got like advanced, ALS or something like that, where they've got this neurodegenerative disease and they literally can't. But a lot of people are there just because they're obese or their knees hurt or, they've got back pain or something. And those things honestly could be avoided. And I think they could be treated to where you don't need those things. And I was, as a physician, I've always been of the opinion that, hey man, we need to just take care of ourselves better. Even before I started carnivore stuff, people would occasionally come in from an orthopedic standpoint, say they want one of these mobility scooters because they were just tired and they're too overweight or something, their knee hurt. I always said no. I never gave anybody one of those because, in my view, that was, effectively like a mobile coffin. It was just like, if you do that, what's going to happen? Yes, you might have a little less convenience. You'll have a little bit more convenience, but at the same time,
Start breaking down.
you're just going to decay further and further. And so, yeah, they would go down the hall and somebody else would ride them for it, but that's fine. But that was my personal stance. And I had some patients who were actually quite mad at me for not doing that for them. But I just felt like, look, in the long run, I'm going to hurt you. And I'd rather not do that. I'd rather you do this. And so, but again, then I didn't have a place to send them. I wish I did. I wish I could say, hey, look, here, go there, go see these guys. They'll get you fixed up. They'll get you on the right track. Honestly, I think, even though what we're doing is digital but I do think we need some inpatient rehab facilities where they literally take these people and feed them right. Just feed them an effective diet. Like you're probably familiar with a guy named Hal Cramner. He's out in Phoenix, Arizona, and he runs nursing homes. And he basically puts his patients on basically a carnivore diet, and he gets them exercising and strength training. These are people that are bariatric patients. They're 600, 700 pounds, stuck in a nursing home because no one else can take care of them. He gets people that are, dementia patients, and he literally fixes a lot of them to the point where they can go back home, because a lot of people, they just kind of get dumped there. And it's like, okay, you're going to go there and basically die. But he actually turns them around with lifestyle and gets them back in the game. And so I think we do need that as well. And so I would like to see, I wish of that $4.5 trillion that we spend, we could spend even 10% of that on what I'm talking about. That would be enormous. But right now it's like lip service. Oh, diet lifestyle matter. Okay. But if it matters, why aren't you funding it? Right. Well, we don't want to fund it because we can make too much money on the drugs.
Yeah. you know, your father, obviously several kids. What do you tell parents, man? Like you can't avoid everything. You can't protect our kids from everything. They step out the door, they're going to be, exposed to what the world has around them. How do you best inform them, educate them, keep them aware, mindful without being too overwhelming or, intimidating or just pressuring?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that kids will mimic what they see rather than what they hear. And so if they see you with a good, healthy lifestyle and somebody who exercises regularly, is not constantly on their phone or constantly sedentary, then they're going to try to mimic that. If all you do is say, oh, you shouldn't be eating that junk food, while at the same time you're eating garbage and sitting around all day. Yeah. So you got to clean up your own house first. And in a way, so you got to do that. You got to provide the example for your kids. And then, as soon as the kids are able to sort of, is able to understand that, you start to, like my kids, when they were like 4, 5, 6 years old, as soon as they could start to have intelligent conversation, start to read, I was like, look, you need to understand the food you put in your mouth impacts how you feel. There are good foods. There are bad foods. I know you get these dietitians say there's no such thing as a bad food, which is complete nonsense. Particularly when you see some of the stuff on the shelves, is blue, artificially flavored Captain Crunch flavored maple syrup stuff. So you teach these kids, hey, look, let's talk about how things can potentially affect you and diet. And then you just talk about, you just kind of continue to reinforce it. Now, yeah, again, eventually they're going to go hang out with their friends and they're going to leave the house and become adults. But really the lifetime patterns that most people adopt are what they experience, kind of in that early adolescence, early adulthood. Whatever pattern you fall into there is often what you'll do the rest of your life. And so that's something you gotta just be, you got to realize it's not love to feed your kids 24 hours, just junk all the time. Oh, my kids are happy when I bake them homemade Toll House cookies or something like that. It's like, yeah, that's true. They're going to like you for it, but it's not helping. You're not doing your kids any favors when you cause them to become addicted to food or become have mental health issues, which, I mean, these are clearly related to nutrition. I mean, where they become pre-diabetic. We've got a third of our kids now are
Yep,
pre-diabetic or
yep,
something like
yep,
that. 20% of them are
yep.
obese. That is not love, in my view. And sometimes it's not about being the friend. It's about being the parent. And the parent says, look, it's like, look, I don't care what your buddies are eating. I don't care about that. You're going to eat healthy, nutritious food, and I'm going to eat it too. And you're going to understand what it's about. And that's all you really can do. I mean, obviously, there's you don't expect every kid to be on a carnivore diet. That's unrealistic, But I mean, you should make the expectation. Look, we're going to eat nutritious food. Whether it's meat, eggs, dairy products, for some fruit, vegetables, things like that. That's going to be the foundation of our diet. And they understand why we're doing that, not just that we do it, but why we do that and why it's important and what happens when you don't do that. Then, they'll either that's all you can do at some point. You can't literally lock them up and, force feed them this and that. They're going to make those decisions. And so, my kids I'm very fortunate that all my kids are happy and healthy and athletic and lean and they don't have any weird food. None of them are fully carnivorous. I mean, they all eat a lot of meat for sure. And they understand the importance of that. None of them are at risk for the mental health disorder that is veganism. I mean, that's, that's, that's not a likely risk factor for them. So I mean, yeah, they're I think we've done a reasonable job on that. I mean, no one's perfect, but I think that's something that, again, your kids 20 years from now, your kids are not going to care less whether or not you gave them that ice cream candy or that, that cotton candy or whatever it is. It's not going to be an issue 20 years from now. But if they are sick, that's a real issue. And I think you do have an impact on whether they develop chronic disease or not. It starts in the home and it starts with the food.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the V words of veganism and vegetables. As a carnivore convert myself, coming from veganism, I had somebody talking to me the other day, a client asking about things, and she had a little bit of guilt because she had some vegetables because she loves salad. To her own words, she loves salad, but every time she has it, she gets sick. And I said, well, is it the salad that's really doing that? Is it a specific vegetable that you can hone in on, or is it a type of dressing or an oil in the dressing, the method of preparation? What's going on there? And she's like, well, I'm not really sure, but I'm pretty sure it's the dressing, from eating out, this and that. Okay, aha, let's separate the two. It's not about the vegetable or vegetables per se, but more so the method of preparation or the other ingredients that are likely in that dressing that's messing with you. Because make no mistake about it, me saying to her, I was like, no one out there in this world is chronically sick from eating, let's say, too many vegetables. Maybe they're undernourished, micronutriently deficient, but they're not becoming morbidly obese or exhibiting symptoms of metabolic syndrome because they've eaten too many vegetables. The hidden demons that are really going on there are going to be foods that are not created naturally, foods that are not, pickable, pullable, killable on the earth, but foods that are made, having to be made of multiple ingredients of things that cannot be pronounced or, halfway even understood. So I think a lot of people, and you even touched on, for people to just choose things that are, whether it's meat, fish, dairy, fruit, vegetables, if it agrees with them, sure. But things that are come from boxes, packages, and that are going to be wrapped or inside those inward aisles in the grocery store, that's definitely where the issue is. For telling someone, thinking that she's losing the fight, so to speak, from eating too many vegetables, it's a hard thing to wrap a head around.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not certainly I'm not a big proponent of vegetables. I kind of think I mean, I ate them dutifully for years because I thought they were a necessary evil. I never enjoyed them. I never once thought, oh my God, can't wait to dig into this broccoli. That was never, I mean, I don't crave it. I never have. I'm surprised anybody actually says they do. I mean, but I sort of get that. I mean, sometimes we have this, we attach emotion to food a lot of times.
Very
And
much
we
so.
have this, oh, you're eating salad, so you're a good boy, good girl. You're a good little girl eating your salad. And you sort of get that feedback that, oh, I'm being a good person. And that might have a different meaning to you. And it's more so than how nutritious it might be or how it might actually make you feel. Because a lot of people, quite honestly, the salad just, it causes gut issues for some. I mean, it's not, I'll be honest. I mean, vegetables, I mean, the inherent goodness of vegetables isn't so much what's, the little bit of nutrition that's in there, to be honest. It's more what they're displacing. And so if you just fill your belly up with lettuce or spinach and it takes away, Doritos and, Twinkies and things like that, then that's good. That's a net good. And so if that helps you to do that, then fine. But and the reason we see a lot of people that are capable of losing weight by having a vegetable predominant diet is not so much because it's such good nutrition. It's just that
Avoidance.
it's actually, I mean, it's almost the opposite of nutrition in many ways because you just don't absorb much.
Yeah.
And you end up with much of that nutrition end up in the toilet. So yeah, you don't absorb many calories, you don't absorb as much protein, and you don't absorb as much fat, you don't absorb as much, actually even carbohydrate. Studies clearly show that. I mean, you look at fiber versus low fiber versus high diets, and you see what's excreted out in the waste, and you lose a lot of those nutrients. And so, it's just a way to eat without consuming calories, without absorbing calories, which is, I mean, that's one strategy. But I mean, I think in my view, a better strategy is to eat nutrition. That's why we eat in the first place. What is the purpose of eating, right? And why do we eat? Well, it's to obtain essential nutrients. It's amino acids. It's fat. It's energy. Whether it's carbs or fat, and it's vitamins, minerals, and maybe some fluid. Some water. That's literally why we eat. And but if you're saying, well, I'm going to eat something where a lot of that ends up in the toilet, I'm like, well, isn't that kind of defeating the purpose? Particularly now as food prices have gone up and up and up, and you're like, well, I want to absorb the nutrition. I don't want to be hungry all the time and having to eat constantly because it's going to cost me more. So I mean, it tends to be a strategy which is a strategy and it works for some people. But I mean, don't kid yourself to think you're super nourished with this. I mean, the superfood are the animal products. Those are the superfoods. Those are the ones that are the nutrients that we actually absorb. That are in the ratios. I mean, it's a strange coincidence that the essential amino acids that we require for life are found in the perfect ratios in meat and eggs and things like that. It's like, isn't that a weird coincidence? Is it, what was it? Was it just coincidence that happened, or was there some real meaning behind that?
Yeah. You talked about it's an interesting month. Rather, it's about to be an interesting next month. We've got an election impending, end of the year coming up. What's before we let you get out of here, Dr. Baker, because I know you're a busy guy. What's on your mind for the end of 2024, going into 2025, and the future and beyond?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm super excited about where the company's going. We're hiring more physicians, we're hiring more coaches. I mean, we've got thousands of patients on our waiting list, and bringing those on, expanding the company. That's the number one thing that I've got on my plate. In addition to that, I mean, obviously, I've got speaking engagements. I'm excited about some of the research that we're trying to get done on this because I think, like I said, I mean, one of the criticisms of a carnivore diet is there's no real research. I mean, there's some research out there. There's more than there was 10 years ago. There's certainly some that are coming up, a lot of case reports and observational studies that have been published now. But we need to see some interventional trials, which, they cost a lot of money and they have to have companies willing to. So that's starting to happen. I'm behind the scenes working with different state legislatures and organizations and groups and private individuals that are helping to want to fund some of these. So that's what's going on. So I'll continue to do that. I mean, like I said, I look forward to every year I get older. I feel like I get I get a little better every year. I mean, and maybe it's relative because I look at, when I was 50, I was, I mean, compared to most 50-year-olds, I'm pretty good. But as I get older and older, and I just kind of I keep actually progressing.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually get faster and stronger as I've gotten older. So for me, from a competitive standpoint, it's great. I'm like, yeah, cool. I can't wait till I turn 60. I'm like, shoot, then I'm in a new age class and I'm going to be like, top of the class again, hopefully, or near that, depending on, God willing, nothing, hopefully, everything stays well with the health and all that, and you avoid accidents and injuries. But, yeah, I mean, that stuff, I mean, obviously, just family, just watching my kids grow and, see how they're turning into young adults. And, yeah, I mean, it's fun times. And, like I said, I've been very fortunate in that, I've been exposed and getting exposed more and more to a lot of very interesting people over the world. I mean, from world champion athletes to politicians and, corporate CEOs and stuff like that share kind of what I share and sort of behind that. And so the more I can hopefully have influence on something, I think it's fun to be able to have a little bit of influence in the way society goes, because I think when you get older in life, it's not so much about what kind of car you drive or what house you live in or whatever, where you can travel on vacation. It's more about what impact are you having on society for you and for your children and grandchildren, perhaps. So yeah, I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to and kind of what's on my mind.
That's awesome. That's the word, impact, for sure. Um, Hell yeah, rock and roll. That's beautiful. Yeah, I was glad to get out of the 35 to 39 age class and the USA Tri Circuit because it's brutal. I was happy to get into 40, 44 because 35, 39 is rough. So I feel you on that. Well, it sounds like you're going to be pretty top notch in that once you go plus 60 too. So that's awesome.
Well, hopefully, like knock on wood. I'm training for it. So I'm, like I said, I have fun. I enjoy it. I mean, I love seeing what I can, what the body's capable of. And I think this is one thing. It's one area, as we see, obviously we've seen more and more of our population just slide into just utter despair with their physical health and mental health. But there is a small percentage of the people out there that are really pushing the extreme, particularly as they get older. You're seeing some incredible athletic performances done by 50, 60, 70s, 80-year-olds. I mean, I'm just really impressed when I see these people out there that are just, wow, that's inspiring to me. And I think that's how, honestly, when I look at, like particularly in this country, United States, in my view, we're the greatest country on earth. I mean, I know people get upset when I say that, but I do think so. And I think we've got such incredible resources here. Such incredible people. We have such great technology and smarts that the fact that we have a nation full of people that are, 70% obese or overweight and depressed and sick and weak and frail is just, there's no reason for that. I mean, there shouldn't be. I mean, we certainly can solve that issue. Yep. And so hopefully going forward, we'll start to prioritize that. And, hopefully we can bring back some level of, just pride, quite honestly. I know pride is considered a bad thing, but I think you need pride sometimes. I think it's important.
Indeed. Pride is good and impact is needed. Well, we really appreciate the time today, Dr. Baker. Thank you again for being here, and it's an awesome honor and a privilege to have you.
Hey, Jake, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody else, tuning in for another episode of Sick, Scared, and Stupid. I'm your host, Jake Thomas. We'll see you next time.